Hey you guys, it's Cayley. I am back with another what sold from last week's video. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my sales numbers from two platforms that I sell on, eBay and Poshmark. I'll do a quick breakdown of those numbers, how much it cost me to sell those items on the platform, and how much it cost me to purchase the items. I did select some more higher priced items from what we sold last week to show you today. And so it will be a little bit different than my normal scheduled programming, I guess you would say. So just keep that in mind. We do also sell a lot of lower priced items, and it all factors out to a really great average sale price that I'm happy with. But yeah, in today's video, I'm gonna be showing you some of the higher price sales because I actually did have quite a few really good bolo sale this past week.
All right, well, as usual, I have a lot to show you, so let's dive right in. All of these sales that are on this spreadsheet happen between December 12th through the 18th. That is a Sunday through a Saturday. That was last week for me. I sold on two platforms, eBay and Poshmark. And between those two platforms, I sold 92 items for a gross sales total of $3,491.50. My average sale price was $37.95. I'm pretty happy with that. My average sale price has been climbing up closer to 40 and staying there steadily. And hopefully over the next several months, I can get that above 40. I used to be above 40, but since going back to the bins and not necessarily focusing on an average sale price, just on sell-through rate, it has dropped a little, but I'm excited to have really good sell-through rate plus, again, moving up the average sale price to get back to where I used to be. So hopefully I can accomplish both of those things within the next couple of months. Estimated cost of goods based on the average buy cost was $368 for everything that I sold last week. And then my estimated net, less the eBay fees, Poshmark fees, and the shipping costs, was $2,140.59. On eBay, I sold 55 items. On Poshmark, I sold 37. Just almost at $2,300 gross sales on eBay, and then just over $1,200 gross sales on Poshmark. Diving right into the sales, this was absolutely my best sale this week, actually my best sale in a while. The brand is Eskendar. I had this listed according to my data on eBay at the beginning of 2021. And I'm really happy that I picked this up, even though I did have to wait that long. This is a 100% cashmere vest, and pretty much anything in this brand I would recommend picking up. This one was in pretty decent condition. There was a small hole, which I made sure to note, and it was here, and you can see I noted it in the listing. But despite that hole, this still sold for really great profits. Super happy with the sale. This was just basically a cashmere sweater vest. This brand is very high end, has a really good following, and I'd highly recommend you pick it up in pretty much anything, even if maybe it has a small hole like this one. I think I originally had this listed high for $450 or something like that, accepting best offers. I have gotten some lower priced offers in the past in like the 200s, but I held out because I knew it was worth quite a bit. This ended up selling on an offer this past week for $375. I originally paid $3.99 for this at a thrift store. This stuff's out there, guys. Just keep your eye out for this. I definitely don't come across bolos as big as this one very often, but you know, a few times a year, I would say I get some pretty higher end items like this, so just keep your eye out for that. Didn't know anything about this brand, only looked it up because it was 100% cashmere, and that's where knowing what the good materials are and doing your research really comes into play, regardless of knowing the brand or not. So once again, one of my favorite sales, sold for $375, and I put extra shipping insurance on this, as well as added signature confirmation. And that's just to protect myself, because when the buyer signs, they're basically saying that they received it, and they received it in the condition that they expected. So I would recommend that if you have a higher price sale like this one. Jumping into another good sale, this is the brand Zara. This was a new with tags Zara women blazer. I'd highly recommend, if you're skipping on Zara, don't skip on the outerwear, the sweaters, and the blazers. All of those things do really well, and some of their midi to maxi length dresses also do well. But I still really like picking up Zara blazers. They've performed really well for me in the past. I will say this one probably would have sold if I could have gotten a better picture. Photographing items that are black can be really difficult sometimes to show the true nature of the garment, and this picture just did not do it justice. So this was a velvet blazer with, again, new with tags. I originally paid $15 for this, and I just accepted an offer of $45. Kind of wanted to see this one go because most of my Zara blazers move quickly, but once again, I think it was just the color of this one and my pictures as to why it sat. So this has been sitting for longer than I'd like, and I accepted an offer, a pretty decent deal for the buyer and myself. Next up is this Innis Crafts. I pick up this brand pretty much anytime I come across it, as well as the Aran Crafts or Aran Crafts. Anything that I see with crafts that's made in Ireland, I pick up, especially these chunky wool cable knit sweaters. If you come across something like this, definitely worth looking up regardless of the brand that it might be. And typically thrift stores don't know about these brands. I only paid $1.99 for this. It sold on an offer for $45. And yeah, I would just highly recommend looking up these kinds of sweaters, especially when they are chunky and they are made in Ireland. One thing I will say, if you've got something like this, is it will really help you to sell your item quicker if you put the word fisherman in it. Fisherman sweaters are like this, where they have all over cable knit, and this is a great keyword to use for an item like this. Next up is this Wallace & Barnes men's pullover sweatshirt. Wallace & Barnes, I believe, yes, here we go. I was about to say, I believe it used to be sold through J. Crew, and it is no longer, and because of that, because you can no longer get it, it's a pretty highly sought after brand. So keep your eye out for Wallace & Barnes. This was a pretty substantial piece. I've sold Wallace & Barnes in the past, but I've never found a men's sweatshirt. So I was really happy with this pickup. It was just cotton, but once again, you can't get this brand anymore, so it can resell for a lot. I paid $4.39 for it. It sold for full asking price of $47.99. And I think this is another one of those brands that the thrift stores just don't really know about, and that's where your knowledge comes into play. Next up is a brand I think a lot of people know about. This is Free People, women's size large, and they tend to be oversized. So, a large in this brand is pretty good to find. I am slowing down on Free People, especially full price at a thrift store, but I do still like picking up these sweaters. I'd recommend that you guys do the same. This was a pretty cool one. It was just a brown duster length sweater. I paid $4.39 for this at a thrift store. It sold on an offer for $35. Here's a bolo to keep your eye out for, not just in this brand, but a couple other brands as well. This is Juicy Couture, and what I do is basically whenever I see velour sweatpants, I look them up with the brand. This Y2K trend is really popular. These, however, were not velour. If they were, I could have gotten a ton more from them. But because I knew that the Juicy Couture velour sweatpants were doing really well because of the Y2K trend, I went ahead and looked up these just basically cotton sweatpants. They were a little faded, but they did have a spell out, and they sold very quickly. I paid $4.39 for it. Once again, something I don't think the thrift stores know about. They did sell very quickly for our full asking price of $29.99. And once again, if you come across these in velour, meaning the kind of velvet look, in this brand as well as some other ones, they can do really good, especially with the spell out, and they can go for more than even this. This is the brand Athleta. Kind of like Free People, I tend to slow down on it and except for in certain pieces. This case, it's a sweater dress, and I like picking up sweaters in Athleta, sweatshirts in Athleta, and their dresses. All of those three things I'm willing to pay for full price at a thrift store, which usually for me is anywhere between $4 and $5. Anything else, I tend to only pick it up at the bins. So I really like this cowl neck sweater dress. Someone accepted an offer of $30 on that. I paid $4.99 at a thrift store. This is the brand Polo Ralph Lauren. You guys know Ralph Lauren is one of my favorite brands to sell. I will say that when it comes to the men's shoes, I feel like they don't have the greatest sell-through rate. The only reason that I picked up these was because I was able to look up this style name right here, the Hayworth or Heworth. And when I looked that up, I saw an exact comp for this, which is why I felt confident picking it up. But I would say in general, the men's Polo Ralph Lauren shoes don't do very well. It really depends on the style. The women's, however, depending on what you have, can do really good. So just be careful about that. It's not just a brand, it's also the style paired with it. And once again, I was able to find an exact comp with this, which is why I got it. To my surprise, it did sell pretty quickly despite there not being an outstanding sell-through rate for this. I paid $4.99 at a regular Goodwill, and it sold for my full asking price of $54.89. This next one is a Christmas sweater. Brand does not necessarily matter, but I do like picking up Christmas sweaters with really good, I guess, graphics or subject matter. Something that really gives me a gut feeling that it is more unique. I really liked this one. I paid $4.39 for it at a thrift store. It sold on an offer for $35. I don't recommend that since we are this close to Christmas. I mean, right now it's Monday and Christmas is on Saturday. So I wouldn't recommend picking up Christmas sweaters now, but maybe after this Christmas, if you can find really nice ones over the next year or so to pick them up for the next holiday season. And then just in addition to that, keep your eye out for crazy sweaters for all of the holidays. I've had success selling some Easter ones. I've had success selling Halloween ones, and it really helps to get them long before the holiday. That way they're already listed when the holiday comes. So we're going to slow down on picking up Christmas sweaters, look for some other seasons. As we start to move towards Christmas next year, we'll start picking up more Christmas sweaters again. But just in general, holiday sweaters, when they are super unique and have good subject matter, can do pretty good. This is a brand I feel like a lot of people say is dead, but I have absolutely no problem flipping Affliction in pretty much anything. This is a women's size small t-shirt. This is the Archaic line. First time I found that line, but it did say Affliction, so I listed it as both. Now, you can't always get a ton for Affliction, but I know, at least for me, that it flips very quickly. This sold almost immediately for a full asking price of $24.88. This sold within a month, which I would consider selling pretty quickly, especially for Affliction. And I paid $4.39 for this at a thrift store. Next up is another Athleta piece. This is a women's sweatshirt. Once again, looking for the more substantial pieces in this brand. This was an extra small, but I picked it up because we were able to find the exact style name, which was called the Luxe Coaster crewneck pullover sweatshirt. And I saw that it was doing pretty good. Paid $4.39 for this at a thrift store. It sold on an offer to watchers for $31.38. Here's a pretty slept on brand. It is LL Bean. Really love LL Bean when it is paired with nicer materials. In this case, this is Shetland wool, and it is a men's sweater. We paid $4.39 for this at a thrift store. It sold on an offer for $26.88. And then I also sold this LL Bean sweater for our full asking price of $24.87. And we also picked this one up for $4.39 at a thrift store. This one was made out of lamb's wool. This is a Tommy Bahama silk shirt. I talk about these a lot. You can usually get $25 for a Tommy Bahama in good condition silk button-up shirt with no extra things. This one had a little bit of floral detail, but the ones that go for more than this are the bright multicolored ones or the embroidered ones. This is a pretty plain one, but it still sold pretty quickly for $25. I picked it up for $4.39 at a thrift store. Also sold this one, again, pretty plain, but it was silk, and it also sold, this one sold on an offer for $22.38. We also paid $4.39 for this at a thrift store. And these are great items that you can come across pretty often, at least in my area. I do come across these pretty often, and I just kind of have to know what my price point is. So I know that the plainer ones or the smaller size ones are only going to flip for $25, and then things greater than that, more multicolor, larger sizes could go for $30 to $40. And I just keep that in mind when I'm deciding to buy it based on the buy price. This is a Brooks Brothers women's cardigan. And I picked this one up because it was merino wool, and it was pretty modern. It had some nice not multicolor, but contrast color piping detail throughout on the edges, and I just really liked it. So I picked this one up for $4.99 at a thrift store. It sold pretty quickly on an offer for $26.88. This is a J. Crew piece. I talk a lot about J. Crew and other mall brands during this time of the year picking up novelty sweaters or novelty print sweatshirts. This one had llamas on it, and it was jeweled, so I knew it would probably be a pretty good flip. Really easy to look up when things are novelty, because you can basically just look up J. Crew llama sweater and check the sell-through rate and the solds from there. And it's pretty easy to find the exact one. Paid $4.39 for this one. It sold for a full asking price of $29.87. I picked up this pair of silver men's jeans at the bins. This was called the Gordy style. Pretty much anytime I see a man's name used as a style name, that's a good indicator that they are a pair of men's jeans. Not always, but I would say 98% of the time that's true. And silver jeans do well for me in both men's and women's, but in the men's, they shine a lot more. They flip a lot quicker. So I definitely picked these up, especially at the bins. So I couldn't have paid but maybe a couple bucks for it. They sold for a full asking price of $34.87. Another men's brand to keep your eye out for is Untuck It. I talk about this brand a lot. It doesn't flip for as much as it used to, but it definitely still has a following. I paid $4.29 for this, and it is a plaid long sleeve men's button-up shirt. This one is a pretty, I would say, common one to come across, but it still flipped for my full asking price of $25.50. Last item I wanted to show you on eBay before we jump over to Poshmark sales were these pair of Crocs camo Mary Jane clogs, sandals, whatever you want to call them. I talk about Crocs a lot. Someone actually just tagged me on Instagram thanking me for my recommendation on Crocs, so thanks so much for the shout out if you're watching this. But she listed some and they sold very quickly for her. Crocs guys just in general have a pretty good following. I would say that during this time of the year, since we're moving into colder weather, and it's typically a more warmer weather brand, that it might not flip for as much as it would have, during the summertime, but it still has a good following. I really like pairing camo with Crocs. I find that camo pairs well with a lot of things. And I probably could have listed these a little bit higher. I paid $4.99 for these at a thrift store. I don't typically pay full price for Crocs. It's usually something we look for at the bins now. However, because these were paired with camo and they were in really good condition, I went ahead and picked them up for full price at a thrift store. These sold for a full asking price of $24.87. And these sold almost immediately upon listing. So if you see Crocs and camo in good condition, I'd highly recommend picking it up. But just Crocs in general can be a good brand to find at the bins. This one was one of my higher price sales. I have most definitely been sitting on this for a while. You can tell by the background and my photos. I definitely don't take photos like this anymore. But I am glad I originally picked this up. This is a Pendleton men's 100% wool heavy car coat. Here is the brand label. If you find Pendleton in anything wool, I would pretty much pick it up, especially in a substantial piece like this. Like I said, this did take a while to sell. I think more formal things in pretty much any brand in the men's department take a while to sell because they just have really specific sizing. This was a size 49, But where sizing really kicks in and why people are hesitant to buy stuff is because usually of the arm length, the sleeve length. So things that are more formal have very specific and a lot of measurements throughout the garment, and so it really takes the right buyer to pick it up. I'm glad I still picked this up. I paid $10 for this. It sold on Poshmark, to my surprise, for $125. So I do recommend picking up stuff like this, but just know you're probably going to sit on it if it is a more formal piece. Next up is another jacket. This is a chore coat, a barn coat, whatever you want to call it, by Orvis. Orvis can be a really good brand to pick up depending on the piece. And then barn coats, which is what I would consider this style to be, really popular style. And especially during this time of the year, I pick it up in pretty much any brand. It just so happened that Orvis is a really good brand to pick up already. So paired with this style, it sold for quite a bit. I paid $5.99 for this at a thrift store. It sold for $68. Orvis, I think, at least in my area, is also a brand that thrift stores don't really catch on to. This is BKE, one of my favorite brands to sell. BKE is sold at Buckle. These are called the Tyler Straights. In men's jeans, I pretty much pick up any style in this brand. Women's, not so much, but definitely in men's. Tyler is a pretty popular style to pick up. And because of that, and because of the sell-through rate, I ended up paying $13 for these, knowing that they would flip very quickly, and I'm willing to pay up for something that I know is going to flip very quickly. So I paid $13, and they ended up selling on an offer for $40. This is something I picked up at the bins. My sister originally told me about this brand, but I can't pronounce it, so I had trouble committing it to memory. I think it's Gudrun Sojin, but this, if you find this, I would recommend picking it up. It's kind of a log and look brand, very relaxed and has some interesting pieces. You can see it kind of has an off-center pocket. So I picked this up at the bins, probably paid a couple bucks for it. And I had this listed probably for $50 on Poshmark and accepted an offer of $40. Here's another one of my better sales this week. This is LaFleur. This brand retails for quite a bit. I don't think it always has the best sell-through rates or the best resale value, but when it comes to nice materials, once again, there is a following for it. So 100% cashmere sweater paired with LaFleur. This, who knows how much it actually retailed for originally, but I got $90 for it, if that tells you anything. This one we actually also found at the bins. Surprisingly, it didn't have any holes, and once again, it sold for $90. I was really happy with this sale, and I believe this is one that Nikki found at the bins. Next up is a pretty interesting sale. This is a Ralph Lauren women's hunting jacket. Anytime I see anything quilted, I know that that's going to add value to an item. Plus, I saw that this was Ralph Lauren Sport. The extra small kind of steered me away a little bit. I wasn't sure if I was going to pick this up. I found this item on ThredUp, and I paid $14.42 for it. I saw that this particular style was doing pretty good on eBay, but once again, the extra small, the smaller size, I almost didn't pick it up, but I'm glad I did because it sold pretty quickly on an offer for $85, so almost $15 into $85. That's a pretty good return on investment for an online flip. This is not a brand I'm familiar with. Once again, the material really carried it through, which is why I picked it up. The brand is Otadami, no idea, whatever this says, but it is a mohair sweater. Mohair is a very, very specific, very soft, and very sought after material. If you find anything with a lot of mohair in it, I would consider 20% quite a bit of mohair in a garment. I would look it up because it can do really well. It has a following, and it's a little bit harder to find. This one was new with tags, and it was a substantial piece like a cardigan. So for all of those factors, regardless of brand, I picked it up. I paid $4.29 for this at a thrift store. It sold for $45. And lastly, ending with a pretty tried and true brand for me, it is Bowden. I really love selling Bowden dresses. I can usually get anywhere from $25 to $50 depending on the piece, but it is a very, once again, tried and true brand for us in the dresses category. This one I was able to find the style name. It is called the Maryland Keyhole A-line dress, and once again, just kind of harder to photograph with black. Had this been multicolor, I probably could have gotten a lot more for it. But it was just a plain black dress. It also sold pretty quickly after getting it cross-posted onto Poshmark for a full asking price of $29. If you kind of steer away from Bowden, maybe consider it in the dresses category because it does perform very well.
Alright guys, so that's it for what sold last week. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. Hope everybody is having happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.